when the ladies lead the men. Opportunity tonight to assemble together and to focus on those things that ladies and only ladies seem to excel. And there are certainly evangelistic aspects to the work that our ladies are they're essential. And I'm so grateful they're over there tonight. It took a lot of pleading and begging to get my wife to teach that class. And even today, I can just tell it's out of her comfort zone. But I'm grateful she's over there and she's just letting the ladies know the talents that are needed that they can provide in that congregational model. So we've been talking about a congregational model for evangelism. It's a different approach. We didn't come to train 10 people on a Monday night to be Navy SEALs. We came to put an army through boot camp and to engage that army in the greatest battle in the world. It's a battle for souls. And so the concept is this use the church for that source of evangelistic outreach. And the church should be the greatest source. And Ephesians 4, 15 and 16, collectively working together, reaching out to help the body grow. 1 Corinthians 12. And so tonight, as we assemble together as men of the church, there are also certain aspects of evangelism where the men are required, where we need our men. And I'm going to challenge the men tonight. Gentlemen, I'm going to treat you like men tonight. And in fact, this is a lesson I would not normally present to ladies, because I'm going to challenge you tonight. If we don't have our men rise to the occasion in this fight for the souls of men and women, that the church is not going to win this battle. And so we need our young men to know the challenge that lies ahead and prepare themselves for that challenge. But we desperately need our older men to rise from the pews and to be leaders in the church, regardless if you're an elder tonight or if you're a preacher. But men have unique qualities, not only leading in their home, but yet taking those responsibilities in the church and leading in whatever effort the elders task you with. And so we're looking at turning the congregation into a personal evangelism machine, where we are fitly joined together and we have one mission. We only have one mission, and we've always had one mission. And there may be 3 works of the church, but those works of the church all focus on one mission. And that mission is to save souls. So it was a summer of 2020, and my family had been traveling the nation. We've been visiting churches, and we were exhausted. And we came back home, and I saw on the calendar that we had, St. Mary's, Georgia was our next stop. And I know also that our anniversary is quickly approaching. I looked at my wife, I said, honey, why don't we go to St. Mary's a little early? We're going to stop by a little early. And we'll just, relax. And there may be some things around the area that we can do. So I called the preacher, Art Wilson. I said, hey, Brother Wilson, I said, we're going to come up a few days early. He said, that's fine. I said, what is the number 1 attraction in your area? He said, deep sea fishing. He said, we are the deep sea fishing capital of the world, Rob. People flying here. I said, man, can you recommend a captain? He said, Rob, he said, he's going to be booked up for a year. I said, you're not going to get him. And I said, well, give me the best one. I'm going to call him. So I got on the phone. I called him. He's supposed to be the best guy out there. And he said, we're in the middle of COVID. He said, I have very few appointments. He says, if you want a deep sea fishing trip, he said, I'll give you one. He said, I got a first mate in me. And he gave me the rate. I said, okay. I said, there'll be 5 of us, my family, my dad. So I said, sir, I said, what time do you want us out there? He said, 3 o'clock. I said, sir, that does not give us a lot of time to go fishing. He said, no, sir, that's 3 in the morning. I said, 3 in the morning. I said, okay, 3 o'clock in the morning. I said, sir, by the way, how am I going to know it's you? He said, son, I'll be the only one out there. I said, all right. I said, I told my family, I told my wife, honey, we're going to get up about 2 o'clock in the morning. We're going to, I snuck that past her, In any case, well, I got a wife, she said, let's go, honey. So we got out there and, that first mate, it's incredible. He just got out of the Navy. I mean, at every word that captain spoke, that first mate was on it. He did it with such urgency, you better be out of the way. Because he moves that quick. Whatever that captain said, everything had a place. I'm a pilot, so I like instrumentation. I'm pretty familiar with some of the technology, but I looked at his helm. He's got stuff I have never seen. And I mean, it's like a glass helm, and he's got everything that he could possibly need to be successful. And I looked at my family, I said, this is going to be really good. So he turns back to me and says, now son, he said, what kind of fish you want? And I said, the big stuff. He said, that's going to take a while. I said, it's no problem. He said, you just might as well go to sleep. So I literally fell asleep. We're hours and hours going out into the ocean. I mean, and we're going out in the Atlantic, right? So the sun starts to peak up, and I'm kind of, squinting my eyes and waking up, and he throttles her back, and he says, all right, guys, he says, time to catch your bait. So he's got these fishing poles, 5 of them lined up, right? He said, everybody grab a pole. He says, you're here, you're here, you're here. He says, okay, drop them in. The captain's at the helm. He's monitoring things. And he said, okay, we're right on them. And he counts down. He literally counted down from 10. He says, 10, 9, 3, 2, 1. He said, pull them up. So I pull them up. I'm pulling up. I got bait fish all over my line. I mean, it's covered. And there are multiple hooks. And I said, Captain, how did you? He said, just put the bait fish in the live well. So we're putting the bait fish in the live well, And he said, okay, now what was it you wanted? I said, just big fish. I want the big stuff. He said, you up for another hour? I said, sure. I said, I want this to work, So we get going again. So we're going even further out. And so after about an hour, he throttles her back. He looks back and he says, we're on him. He said, which one of you are first? I raised my hand. I said, I'd love to go. He said, buckle him in. Buckle me in. He said, get the harness on him. So they literally so I've got this fishing pole. It is the size of my arm. I've never seen a pole like this. And it's huge. And he buckles me in. He sits me down. And then he's watching he's watching all these gauges. And then suddenly he says, about 5 o'clock, first mate. He said 150 yards or something. So we throw out there, and it's taking line. And so we stop it. And he starts his countdown again. I said, what's this guy doing? All of a sudden, my pole just goes zzz, and it just sunk. And he said, hold on, son, hold it tight. He said, it's taking line. He said, just a second. He said, you're going to yank it. Give it one good yank. And I did, and I set the hook. The next 10 minutes was exciting. I mean, I'm fighting that fish. I mean, I'm telling you what it was. I could see it out there. He can see it. I said, Captain, what do I got? He said, man, that's a kingfish. Brethren, there's a reason they call it a kingfish. And I started moving that thing in, and it's coming. I said, how are we going to get that in the boat? He said, we're just going to drop the back. He drops the back of the boat. We're going to pull it in. He's got this big hook. And right about the time we move her on in, right, this other fish comes out of the right-hand side of my eye, and it sails. It literally sails out of the water, comes right down on my fish, shoot, cuts it in half like butter. Captain, what happened to my fish? Well, son, it's called a barracuda. There's a reason we call it a barracuda. And I said, well, Captain, it ate half my fish. He said, I know that happens sometimes. I still got a fish like this. I got pictures of this thing. By 2 o'clock that afternoon, we're finished. We're going in. We had our limit. This captain knew his trade. He knew everything there was about fishing. When it came to knowing where the fish were, he knew exactly where they were, exactly how to get them. He didn't complain when he had to get up at 2 o'clock in the morning. He spared no expense. Whatever he needed to buy, he bought it. Whatever experience he needed, he spent it. Whatever reading time, study time he needed to invest, he invested. I think there's some men in our audience right now, and you're more qualified, you're more vested, you're more passionate to get out there and get the big buck than we are to go fishing for men. Brother, we're more qualified to go get the catfish. I mean, and when it comes to getting your camouflage, you don't complain. When it comes to getting up at 2 o'clock in the morning, you don't complain. You got your food plot ready. You got your land leased. You got your rifle ready. We got the best camouflage on earth. We got cameras. They don't have a prayer. Brother, you just don't have camera. You got the Wi-Fi camera. You sit there in your office, and you know exactly what time that big buck comes. You don't complain. If we put half as much energy into trying to figure out how to win souls in this country, if our men would spend half as much energy trying to focus on how to reach their next door neighbor, how to reach their family, how to reach their coworkers, how to reach their schoolmates, as we do going hunting, brethren, we'd fill our church buildings. Brethren, there is a war being fought, and I'm afraid we're not fighting. We're not on a war footing. I mean, Satan he's going all out. Do you not know he tastes the blood? He tastes it. He sees the state of the church of Christ. He knows what's coming, and he just joyously is looking forward to it. And as men in the church, we've got to understand in this war that's being fought for the souls of not just our neighbors, not just our friends, but our own children, that if as men we don't rise and we don't stand in the gap, and as men, if we don't rise and fight for God, and this is what it is, because this is an army, and this is an all-out war. Ephesians chapter 6, we wrestle not against flesh and blood. This isn't an earthly conflict. This isn't a revolution. We're not going to fix this by taking our arms and rising up in this land. That's not the war we're fighting. We are fighting a spiritual battle for the souls of men and women, and we need our men to rise. We need our men to be activated. We need you with passion to come and do whatever it takes, because your elders are going to call upon you, men. And will you be ready to rise to the occasion? And we need elders to lead. We need elders not to put sign-up lists in the hallway. We need elders to tap people on the shoulders and say, listen, we've got a job and we think you're the guy. Will you meet with us? There's some training that we need to provide you. We need men and women and families who are willing to say, listen, whatever it takes, you put me where you think I'm best. You put me where you think my talents will help this church. So we're asking tonight for this to work. This is not about Scott. And I don't mean to be disrespectful to your brother or my friend. This is not about the instructors at the Memphis School of Preaching. This is not about Evan. This is not about individual elders or the eldership. This is about the members of the Forest Hill Church of Christ. You're the engine of evangelism. And you're going nowhere. I mean, your elders are in the pilot seat. They're in the driver's seat. Your preacher's sitting right next to him in that passenger seat. But I'm telling you, you're not going anywhere without the members. And what we see in our school is those churches that I showed you last night. Do you want to know why they're growing like that? Every one of them. If you go to every one of them, the members are driving it. The members are working it. If you place all this on your preacher, let me say 250 members, am I accurate here at Forest? 200, if you put that on the back of your preacher, give him 12 months and you're sinking. I don't care how strong or good he is, he can't do it by himself. Now, you won't do it without him. And he's essential. And you won't do it without good elders. But the membership, so this is what I want to talk about tonight. I want to talk about how getting that church and making sure that church is working together. And there are things that are needed for this. So anytime a soldier fights a war, there are things that a soldier needs. He's got to be equipped properly. If you could advance the slide for me. There's a quote by Winston Churchill. He's considered one of the great orators of the world. In speeches, he had a unique ability to connect with people with his oratory skills. And here's something that he said in his speech before Parliament. This is when his country was in turmoil. In fact, the morale of the people had never been lower. Neville Chamberlain had signed that Munich Peace Accords. You know, he was an appeaser. In fact, there's a quote from Chamberlain. Basically said, "Peace at all costs, even if it's my own country." Winston Churchill said that's absurd. He said, we're not giving up our country for peace. He said, we will fight for peace. So he goes before the Parliament. One of the things he said in that speech was, he who fails to plan is planning to fail. My fellow countrymen, we have no plan. He said, we're shooting from the hip. He said, we've got to get out there with a plan. We've got to fight this war. We got to take on Adolf Hitler. And he did. And that moment in time where he kind of turned the parliament and the votes began to switch and Britain became active in that war effort and began to fight against the aggressor is considered one of the key and pivotal moments of world history. Well, brethren, I don't know where we are in history. I don't know how God looks at this. I can't look ahead. I can see indicators on the horizon. But it may very well be that right now in the Church of Christ, this is one of those moments. We either plant our feet and rise and take upon this challenge and start turning the ship and getting our churches again evangelizing like they once did when they put you in the dictionary. We're the only church, as far as I can tell, and I've looked at several dictionaries. I've never seen any other church in the dictionary but us. We defined the word. Now, I know they use Campbellite in derision. That's not the point. The point is they were forced to deal with you. So let me just give you 10 things in general. I'm going to give you a 20,000-foot view. I'm going to give the elders a 10-foot view. But I want to give this church a 10,000, 20,000-foot view of things that you got to have. Number one, you got to arm your troops. Your members have to have the materials. They have to have the equipment. And I know you're already doing some of this. You're getting them into their hands. So this is not just a preacher thing locked away in his office. We've got to get our members the tools, whether it's open Bible study, back to the Bible, jewel mill, something. You got to put something in their hand. Because if you don't, I promise you they're not going to do Bible study. Cliff Goodwin is a dear friend. And we've traveled together. We've vacationed together for many years, our families. And Cliff said, Rob, I want you to come in and do this soul-winning workshop for us and man, really fire up the church. I said, Cliff, you don't need me. He said, yeah. He said, I do. And so we went over to Ironton, not too far from Jacksonville. It's an hour. And so I went through the presentation and went through the materials. And, months and months later, I talked to Cliff. I said, Cliff, how are things going? He said, Rob, we have had more baptisms. He said, let me tell you what's going on. We've got widows out there doing Bible studies. Widows. He said, Rob, I didn't even know they did. He said, my daughter has baptized more than I've baptized. He said, when you walked out the door, we started that training process. And there's a list of things that we're going to suggest that you do. He said, we started that. He said, now we've got members who have the confidence and they're not relying upon me. He says, the members are doing it. Brother, we need to engage our members. We need to engage our members because our members are the driving force. They're the engine once again. Give them the materials. Don't lock them up in the elder's office. And it's not a top secret file. This is just basic stuff that our members need. We send Bibles all over the world. Where are the Bibles for the members? I'm talking about Bibles they can give out. It's amazing how many people today have no Bible. I mean, I'm talking about materials for people who don't believe in God. I mean, where is that material? I mean, where's the Bible study? Yes, we can give them a book. I'm not opposed to that. We can refer them to a video, but there will never be a better way to do it than a personal Bible study where you sit down one-on-one, if they will. We've got to make sure that we give people materials to help them bring people and ideas. How do we bring people? And make sure they're trained and equipped for new converts. So number one, we've got to get the material. Number two, you got to put it out there where they can get it. I'm going to tell you a true story that happened, and this has been this has not just been an anecdotal incident. I've seen this multiple times. So I went to a congregation, preacher's name's David, it's in Alabama, good-sized church. And I said, one of the things that we recommend is that you put that material on some display. You make sure the members visibly see it. They have access to it. They know that's our center. In fact, let me give you a picture of what I'm talking about. We call this the Evangelism Center. So this is where we have our model. We've got all the tools we need. You can customize your tablecloth, make it, put your logo on it. But you got to get the materials out there. They're not going to the library. I know you probably have, you have a wonderful library. The members aren't going. Let me tell you where they are going. They're going into the foyer, in and out. Put it where they have to trip over it. Do not allow them to avoid it. Don't put it in some type of obscure corner. So David, he calls me. He said, hey, Rob. He said, we did that. That's step 2. We did that. We put it right in the foyer. He said, I've got the nice tablecloth. And I put all the stuff out there. And he says, and I went back to the church building several days later. He said, Rob, it was gone. I said, gone? I said, well, David, the brethren were thirsty. They took it all. He said, oh, you're so optimistic, Rob. He said, that's not what happened. And he said, Rob, I suspected the problem, but I put it out again anyway because, I had more. So I put more out. I came back the next day, and it's gone again. I said, David, what's happening to the evangelism material? He said, Rob, well, I called one of the leaders. I said, brother, the evangelism table, what's going on? He said, now, David, when we built this $2 million facility, we agreed on the authorized items in the foyer. And that gaudy-looking table, the ladies complained, and they said it doesn't match the decor, and we can't be having things that look like that do not match the other things, and it's just no place for that in the foyer. It doesn't look good, so we moved it and we put it in the coat closet. I said, David, let me make sure I understand. They took the evangelism table because it didn't match the decor, and they put it in the coat closet. He said, that's exactly right. I said, David, what did you do? He said, well, I preached on it. He said, Sunday night as part of the training, I know I'm supposed to preach on the materials. So I started talking about the different things that they have available, what their purpose is. I showed the picture. He said, David said, Rob, he said, I stood back by the coat closet. It's a big coat closet. I stood there. I waited for the members to walk into the coat closet and get their material. Guess how many of them did it? None. Brethren, I have a suggestion for you tonight. If we can't put evangelism material on a table in our foyers because it doesn't match the decor, maybe we should sell the building and go home. This is not home interior. This is the church of Christ. Our job is to train and equip soul winners. And so perhaps we're misguided. Hey, I'm not really concerned about home interior. I'm concerned about making sure our soldiers have the equipment to reach lost people. You say, oh, preacher, surely that was just a one-time occurrence. Brethren, it would take more than one hand to tell you how many congregations have had the same problem. Because one of the steps, I'm going to ask, I'm going to say, give me a picture of your evangelism table. So I asked several weeks, and you could tell the preacher doesn't want to answer. And I said, brother, where is the evangelism table? Well, they think it kind of looks gaudy out there, Rob. It doesn't look right. When evangelism materials don't look right, we've got a problem. Number 3. All right, let's train our people. So the U.S. military, you're going to be equipped. You're going to put you in a long line. You're going to get your boots, your socks, or whatever it is you need. You're going to be equipped. Brethren, they're not going to turn over some of that equipment without you getting trained. They're going to, by the way, I'm talking to a group of men here tonight. So let me ask this question. You guys go to work, and you've had maybe multiple jobs. Raise your hand tonight if any of you have ever been to training for your work. Raise your hand. Hands down, all right? Everybody. My first job was a bag boy. I had 2 hours of training just to bag groceries. So I know that there's training that goes along. How many of us in this auditorium have ever been to a training class that is designed to teach you what to do when visitors walk in the door? Now, I'm not asking if you've heard a sermon on it. I'm not asking if you've heard a sermon that says be kind to visitors, be smiling, greet them. I'm talking about a training class. Because this is where we're heading. So at every turn, we're training our members. Now, not everybody needs to go to that class. But we want the congregation to realize there is a plan. When a visitor walks through those doors, there's a plan for that visitor. There are certain things that we want to do. And we're going to train you on what to do. We're going to train you on how to approach a new mover. We're going to train you on how to work with people who have benevolent needs. We're going to train you on what to do when there's a person perhaps that has been sick and ill and they've been submitted and we're looking to reach out to them in love. We're going to train our people on how to conduct a study. Train our people on what to say to get to study. what I'm trying to say is that those tools do nothing if there's no training. Brethren, your business would go bankrupt if you've got the kind of training in your business we get at church. Sermons are important, and it's the power of God to save, but we've got to get some training going on as part of those tools that are connected to those sermons and make it actionable. And so this is very important that we have training, and I'm going to give some suggestions. I've got curriculum, and we've got A to Z. We're going to cover every aspect from contacts to prospects and making sure members have the training. So recently, I was at a congregation and the preacher said, Rob, he says, man, I buy into everything you guys promote, everything, except one thing. I said, well, what is it? Door knocking. Doesn't work. He said, does not work. I said, have you ever gone through our training? He said, no. I said, I'll tell you what, I'm coming up there to do some advanced training. I said, this is our second go around. I'm going to spend an entire lesson on it. And then on Saturday, my family will stay. We won't leave. We were scheduled to leave on Saturday. I said, I'll stay and I'll door knock if the members will come. Deal? He says, deal. And he says, why would you do that? I said, oh, by the way, I want you to write down the number 30. He said, why is that? I said, that's 30%. We will be successful at the door 30% of the time. He said, how do you know that? I said, I've done it all over the country. I said, I don't care what part of the country you're in, I'll hit 30%. He says, you're not going to hit 30%. There's no way. I said, write it down. So he writes it down. So we get there, we train them. We've got four things we teach people to do at the door. There are things I teach you to say, things you should never say. In fact, when you get out of your car and you're walking up the driveway, there are things you should be doing. He's a Marine, Navy, Army. He loves Tennessee Volunteers. That's a dog. There's toys in the yard. I'm making observations as soon as I walk up the driveway. I'm going to connect with you. As soon as I've got a limited window, and if I can extend that conversation about 2 or 3 minutes, I'll hit my 30%. So I trained that church. They came back. They had a 33% success rate. They baptized 3 of them within 1 month. They believe now. How did that happen? Could you just throw out the members, give them a gospel meeting flyer, and say, we've got, Brother Keith Mosier coming to speak? Come to the meeting. Brother, I've got news for you. They're not coming. They don't care. They don't care if it's B.J. Clark. They don't care if it's Scott Kane. They don't care if it's Dan Winkler, Glenn Colley. They don't care. They don't know who these people are. So our traditional way of saying, hey, I'm Rob Whitaker, and we're having a gospel meeting. We'd like you to come to our church tonight. How many of you have been a part of that kind of stuff? I have. Do they come? Do they come? How many of them come? Very little. It's almost non-existent. So we've got to train our people what to do at the door, what to say, what not to say. And I wish I had more time here. I got to move on. Number 4. All right, number 4. So training's the key, and we're going to do a lot of training. There's going to be a lot of training that goes on. All right, number 4. We got to promote. I'm going to stick with my P's for Scott. Promote a evangelistic culture. All right, we're going to create an evangelistic culture in our church. What that means is that everything now funnels through evangelism. It funnels through it. So I was at a congregation, it was one of the larger churches in Alabama, and it was during the 1960s and 70s. It really grew. They had a really sharp soul winner in the pulpit. One of the elders, he was a younger man at the time, and he's serving as an elder, and he said, Rob, I'll tell you why we grew. And I said, I'm all ears. He said, it's the funnel effect. He said, our preacher said that if it's not evangelism, we don't do it. He said, literally, he put a funnel in the church, and he said, listen, everything we do from this day forward funnels through evangelism, or we don't do it. And he said, Rob, our graduation banquet became evangelistic. He said, our VBS became evangelistic. He said, our backpack drive became evangelistic. Whatever it is we did was an evangelistic event. Everything we did, from Bible class, every event, every community outreach, every youth event, it was about evangelism. We somehow tied it in. So what we want to do is create a culture in our church where our members realize, if they come to the elders and they say, listen, hey, I think we'd like to pass out water in this marathon and represent the church, and we think we could meet a few contacts or something. Hey, if it's evangelistic, go for it. I'm not opposed to passing out water. Brother, I'm not opposed to giving out turkeys. I'm not opposed to, Meals on Wheels. But the goal of Meals on Wheels is not to solve world poverty. Jesus said the poor will always be with you. Jesus did not seek to solve all the ailments of the physical world. You will never solve world poverty at the Forest Hill Church of Christ. Never. So why help people? Because love is the foundation of evangelism. And if you don't love people, if they don't see that, you're never going to be able to teach them. So Jesus feeds the 5,000, and he's proving his divinity, there's no doubt. But there's an element of we care. There's an element of compassion. He had compassion on the people. He sees that they're hungry. He says, listen, we've got to feed these people. And so there's an element of that. So we need to stick that funnel in our church and say, okay, everything we do from this day forward, it funnels back to evangelism, or we don't do it. I went to my elders at Willette when I was preaching. I said, brethren, I've been dressing up like a clown. I've dressed up like a cowboy. I've dressed up like, I'm done with that. I said, I'll tell you what I want to do this year for Vacation Bible School. I said, I want to save souls. I said, I'm just going to be Rob. I said, if somebody else wants to dress up like a cowboy and run up and down the aisles, they can do it, not me. I said, what I want to do, as a preacher, I want to look for contacts. And they said, all right. He said, show us what you mean. So I had a family sat right behind my wife and I. There they are. And I baptized them right here. Brother, when I meet someone that's not a member of the church, I baptize you immediately right here. And so I'm going to do everything I can to take you to the cross. So I turned around and said, my name's Rob, my wife, Nicole. I'm Phyllis. Hey, Phyllis, where are you from? Just down the road. Phyllis, are you here for VBS? Yeah. I said, I brought my granddaughter. Oh, great. Good to see. We baptized her. Her husband, I remember the first time we went to visit her, and she warned me not to come to her house. She said, now, Rob, I'm warning you. He said, my husband's mean. And I said, it's okay. I said, I've met mean people before. So I knocked on the door. He answered it. He says, who are you? I said, I'm the preacher. And he started cussing me. I got cussed. It's okay. I said, I just got backed up. I said, sir, I'm just here to see. He said, you, Phyllis, come on in here. The preacher's here. And so I baptized him 2 years later. Our Vacation Bible School became evangelistic. I carried that over to Jacksonville. The first time we had a VBS there, we baptized the whole family. So VBS was no more about Sundays on Wednesday night, and I'm not opposed to Sundays. You have all the ice cream you want. But who comes to Vacation Bible School? Who comes? The community. I remember the first VBS we had at Willette. Brother Mosher, you've been to Willette. It's a big auditorium. We filled it. I walked in, and it was solid from door to door. I'm like, there are 400 or 500 people here. I looked at Hugh Wayne Clark. I said, Hugh Wayne, where are these people coming from? He said, well, it's VBS. They all come. I said, it was a gold mine. I said, these are contacts. I said, we've got to reach out to these folks. So the mindset that the local church has got to be, okay, backpack drive, I'm all for it. Let's just make it evangelistic. We did this at Carnes last year. Carnes put together, okay, so one of the elders at Carnes Church, great church, Steve Higginbotham, good man. They said, Rob, you're coming. You're going to be here for 10 days. We call it an American Mission Campaign. We only do a few of them each year. They're very taxing. He said, we want to do a backpack drive on that Saturday. I said, I love it. He said, we're going to task a deacon, and we're going to put him in charge. Would you work with that deacon, train that deacon? I said, yes, sir. So I got there, and that deacon took me to his room, his backpack room. The members had been donating. He opens the door. In the closet, this is a huge closet, there are more backpacks, crayons, and scissors than Walmart has. We are completely prepared. I said, tell me your plan. He said, well, we're going to rope off the parking lot. We think we can get 400 of them through on Saturday morning. He said, we're going to give them some literature on the church. We're going to give out backpacks. He said, man, we got people standing by. He said, we've been watching Chick-fil-A. He says, we're going to model it. No one puts you through the line faster than Chick-fil-A. Brother, I travel this country. When I go into a town and I need to eat and I see 20 people at Chick-fil-A, it doesn't bother me a minute. If I see one person at Popeyes, I don't go. Right? Chick-fil-A knows how to move them through the line. And so here it is anyway. So he's got the, he said, well, Rob, he said, the elder said maybe you'd have some ideas. And I said, yes, sir. I commended him first. I bragged on him. I said, brother, would it be okay if we put the backpacks in the classrooms? He said, what do you mean? I mean the classrooms, like all the classrooms. And would it be okay if we assembled and we asked every family, every member of this church to be here on Saturday morning? And you got a beautiful facility. I said, would it be okay to do an open house and walk them through the building and show them, and escort them and then take them to the classroom where their child would go to church? Would it be okay to get a picture with them and give them their backpack? Would it be okay for the ladies to have a fellowship meal back there and food where you could sit down and get to know them and get their contact information? Would it be okay then to escort them out to the parking lot? He said, Rob, if we did it that way, we might not get 100 people. On the very day we did that, because we changed the whole way we did it, Steve Higginbotham's doing a Bible study in room 101. Brethren, it's time for us to start thinking about backpack drives as an evangelistic event that's designed to bring people to the cross. It is not designed to give them backpacks. It's designed to bring people to the cross. The Church of Christ is not responsible for outfitting Germantown or Memphis with backpacks. We are responsible for taking them to the cross, and I'll give you a backpack. We need to understand why we do what we do. We do not send cards to send cards. We do not give people food to give food. We are helping people for one reason and one reason only. We must promote an evangelistic atmosphere. So our blessing boxes and our vouchers and our winter coat drives and our benevolent buildings and our teacher supply giveaways and our turkey giveaways and whatever it is we're doing, it is connected to winning souls, or we don't do it. We are not the Lions Club. Her name is Kim Bullock. She called up and talked to Deborah Rice before she passed. She was a secretary. And she called them and said, I've just moved in the area and got this house-to-house, heart-to-heart, and it says you offer free community services. I need some. And Deborah Rice, she knows exactly what to do because we've trained her. Now, this is different. This is going to sound different than your traditional response, so listen carefully. Deborah Rice knows that she's authorized to say these words. Yes, ma'am, we'd be glad to help you. What kind of help do you need? Well, I need help with groceries, and then she listed a few other. I got a bath mat that I need, and I need transportation. She's going through and talking to. She said, well, ma'am, we'd be glad to help you. We offer that every Sunday morning at 9:30, and we're looking forward to meet you. And Kim said, well, I don't think I can get there at 9:30. It's okay, Kim. We offered it again at 10:30. Oh, I just don't think I can get there at 10:30. Okay, no problem, Kim. We do it at 6 o'clock on Sunday. Oh, Sundays aren't good days for me. Don't worry. On Wednesday night at 7 o'clock, we offer it again. Oh, I just can't. I don't have any car. Don't worry. We'll pick you up. First thing we've got to do is we've got to separate the charlatans from the seekers. And you'll do that if you give that response. You're going to separate them out. And they're going to come up with, well, I just need help right now. I'm so sorry, city services, maybe they can help you. But this is when we do our Sunday morning at 9:30, Sunday morning at 10:30. Now, the Crossville Church of Christ, I think they established something like Monday at 6. They do theirs. At Willette, we did ours Monday at 9 a.m. And every time someone called me, I said, Monday, 9 a.m., that's your day. That's your time. It didn't matter what they said to me, Monday, 9 a.m., I want them in the church building. I want to meet them. I have one mission when they walk into that church building. Brethren, when they walk into that church building, would it be wrong? Help me, guys. Would it be wrong for us to have some Navy SEALs sitting in our pews, armed and ready with a back to the Bible, taking them to go to room 101, and as they walk in, we say, oh, this family needs some help. Could you take them to room 101? And when they get into room 101 to do a Bible study, would there be anything sinful about doing a Bible study during Bible class? Mel Hutzler, Northern Oaks Church of Christ, they've gone from 90 to 130 in 2 years. I said, Mel, tell me, how have you gone from 90 to 130? He said, Bible class. He said, Rob, it's really hard in San Antonio to get a Bible study on the weekdays. It's hard. He said, and I adjusted. He said, Rob, I decided to do them on Sunday morning. He said, so when they walk in the door, I take them to room 101. I said, who teaches the adult class? He said, we got plenty of men to do that. He said, but I want to do the Bible study. He said, so literally, he said, there are days there may be weeks when I don't teach Bible. I'm in that classroom and I'm conducting a Bible study. I said, Mel, you're doing Bible studies during Bible class. And he said, Rob, I actually had a member raise her hand and said, is that sinful? Brethren, if it is sinful to do a Bible study during Bible class, we have more serious problems. We got to think outside the box. There's nothing wrong with that at all. In fact, I would suggest that Mel says that, so we'll have visitors come in, and I just say, hey, you're visiting. We got a special class. It talks about our church. It's a private class. Oh, yeah, I like that. He said, we just take them right on in and start back to the Bible book 1. That's just brilliant. And he said, and so that's one of the things we recommend to church. By the way, you can see what happened to Kim, right? We're sitting in her living room, and the church had gone all out to help her, all out. Cards had been sent, and I looked over, and I'm going to ask my 3 questions. I always ask the same questions. Number 1, hey, Kim, what do you think about the Forest Hill Church of Christ? Oh, I love this church. Rob, do you know they've sent me 74 cards? I said, really? 74? Yeah. She said, I read them all the time. Rob, they moved me. Rob, I just love this church. I never met a more kind church. Okay, Kim, do you know a lot about the Forest Hill Church of Christ? I don't know a lot. Number 3, Kim, would you like to know more about it? She said, I sure would. I said, I just so happen to have these little booklets. I do this time and time again. I rarely change my routine. I'm kind of robotic. It's not that hard. We complicate this. And we act like there's some formula out there that a nuclear physicist has to come up with to get someone to study the Word of God. When all we got to do is love people and ask them simple questions that are intentional. They're designed to get an answer. I get that because I'm taking them to Calvary. And I'm not just going to sit there and mop their floor and clean their kitchen and do that just because I want to clean kitchens. I do it because I love you and I want to take you to the cross. And cleaning your kitchen won't do it. I've got to do a Bible study. Number 5, I'm going to spend maybe the rest of my time right here. I may not get past point 5. I got 10 points. I may not get past point 5. Of all the things, gentlemen, of all the things you do at this church, this is the most important step in evangelism. You fail here, you fail everywhere. You can have the brightest evangelists, the best teachers, you can have the greatest, you can have everything you need to succeed. But if you don't have this, you fail. Doctors call them patients, and without patients, you don't have a practice. Airlines call them passengers. Without them, you go bankrupt. The military calls them recruits. Without them, you have no army. Walmart calls them customers. Without them, they go out of business. Teachers call them students. Without them, they have no school. We're going to call them contacts, and without them, we don't have a church. This is it. We need them. The worst contact creator you've got in this church are your preachers. They're awful. They're terrible. You know why? Because they don't know who you know. You go to work, and you work with sinners. Guess where? When Brother Mosier goes to work, guess who he works with? Christians. He's surrounded by them. When Scott comes up here and works, guess who Brother Rutherford works? He works with Christians. But this is why the members are the engine of evangelism. Brethren, hear me very clearly. The members are the source of contacts. And every member of this church knows people who are lost. Students at schools of preaching are terrible sources for contacts normally. They are surrounded by each other. And so when I was preaching, my source of contacts were the members. And I begged the members, give me a name. Tell me who you know. And visitors who would walk in. But our members, you see, they're working with people, playing ball with people, growing up with people. They've known them all their life. They shop with them. They walk with them. They hike with them. They vacation with them. How many of you know, I'll tell you what, this is a, how many of you in the audience right now could, on a piece of paper, Write down 5 people in your sphere of influence right here in Memphis that are lost. How many of you could do that? Raise your hand. Okay, keep your hands up. Keep them up. I'm going to do something. 5 people. You could write them down. How many could you do 10? Keep your hands up. How many could you do 20? 30? See, for preachers, this is really tough. Scott, one of the most humbling things that happened to me was Brooks Boyd. That's my preacher, Glencoe Church of Christ. So I'm at Glencoe. We're trying to help this church grow because they were about to close their doors. So we moved over, and I behind the scenes, I'm working with these elders and preacher, because I don't want to lead this effort. They're going to lead. So they did the exercise. So I got my bookmark out, and I've got my bookmark. It's in my Bible, and I'm going to teach you about this. And I started. They said write down 10 people. Now the first 3 were kind of easy. The 4th one I had to stop and think about. When I got down to number 5, I was out of options. Like, I don't know them. I literally didn't know 10 people that were lost in my community. I couldn't name them. I'm just not there. And I got 13 acres around me. So I know my neighbor across the street, that's Tucker and his wife, and I got that. But outside of that, I just don't know people. Now, I know my plumber. I put my plumber down. I put my HVAC guy down. And I started to write. I put my printer guy. My printer guy, he's the guy that prints materials for me. He's in Birmingham. I put him down. Oh, we baptized him, by the way, 2 months ago. He's not on the list anymore. And so what I did is I just started trying to write down. And I got down to number 5, and I looked at my wife. I said, honey, who do you got? She had the same 5 I did. But you know, I looked out and Erskine Bowers grew up in Glencoe. He knows 200 people that are lost. He knows 200. You give me 20 bookmarks. And so here's where we've got to begin to realize that this is a congregational concept. There are things that you guys know, members of this church do. We meet up, and you do it better than us. And we can't do our job without you. And if you'll do your job, I'll do my job. I just need your help. I'm not asking you to lead the Bible study. I mean, I would suspect there are some people in our audience tonight who are uncomfortable leading Bible study. That's all right. In my idealistic days, I'd say, unless you led a Bible study, you're lost. I was idealistic. That's just not true. You know, you don't have to lead a Bible study to go to heaven or to be an evangelist. There are some very evangelistic people in our churches that don't lead the study. Sometimes they just bring somebody. They're bringers. And we have examples of them in the New Testament. People brought people to Christ, brought disciples, brought John, Peter. They're bringing people. Now, I'm going to give you just a few things that you can do to bring people. And I'm going to save my best for last. I'm going to save my best for your elders. So, in the corporate world and business world and sales, there's a term. There are several terms. One is called brand saturation. Coca-Cola has brand saturation. How many of you, when you want a soft drink, give me a Coke, and what does that mean? Sprite, root beer, you just use the term Coke. That's called brand saturation. They own the market. We're never going to get that in the Church of Christ. Never. But we do have to have something called brand awareness. So here's my question. Is the community aware of this church? Are the people where you live aware of the Forest Hill Church of Christ? Are they just aware of you? Because if they're not aware of your presence, I promise they're not coming. Now, I want to tell you something good that happened this week. That gas station. Where's the gas station? That gas station on the... Okay, everybody's pointing 3 different directions. All right, you don't know where you're located. I don't either. So there's a gas station on the corner. I walked in. I got the School of Evangelism shirt on. She said, oh, you were at the Memphis School of Preaching. I said, well, kind of. Yes, ma'am. I said, I do teach there every now and then. She said, man, I just love that school. I said, really? I said, well, why? Oh, that's a good church down there. Been there a long time. Good people down there. I said, what's your name? I went back this morning, Scott. And I said, you go to church anywhere? She says, nah. She said, I don't. And but you have a reputation. And she said, it was good. You need people in your community to be aware of, by the way, you know what gave you the reputation? Your students. Because she said they're always back there buying candy and Coke all the time. That's what they do. They're always coming in and getting coffee all the time, So Anyway, she gave me two, by the way, students, because of you, I got 2 free sausage biscuits. She gave them to me because I was with the school, you know. She said, hey, you know, you get 2 free sausage biscuits. So we gotta make the community aware of our presence. So house to house, heart to heart, there is no better. There's no better way to do that, because you're making people aware of your presence. Now, I was a little naive when I started this school. I walked into the East Side Church of Christ in Cleveland, Tennessee. All right, good church. Jeff Archie was there at the time preaching, and I know the elders well. And they sat me down in the conference room. They said, Rob, give me your big hitters. I said, well, you guys need to use house to house, heart to heart. They said, tried that, doesn't work. Took the wind out of my sail. I was like, what do you mean it doesn't work? And I baptize people all the time because of that. So I started asking questions. What I realized very quickly is they didn't know how to use it. They were using it as a mailer with no direction whatsoever, with no input, no investment, no direction. It just being mailed out. So here's what I found. I have found that a lot of churches that use house to house, heart to heart, are not properly advertising their church. Let me give you an example. Their website's not on there, and if it is, it doesn't work. Their email, if it's on there, it's not attended to. In other words, I can send test emails and you never reply. Number 3, the phone number you put on there, no one's there. I can call, you know, if I called it maybe Friday evening, I got home from work, 7 o'clock, and I said, you know, I'm going to call that church, or maybe Saturday, 10 o'clock in the morning, no one's there. And then I started noticing that the services they're providing are not services that anybody cares about. You know, when you say free Bible correspondence course, I love Bible correspondence courses, but that's not something they're probably going to respond. But if you said this, free transportation to the church building, their call. Statistically, I know that. I also know statistically, if you said free community services, they're calling. Hey, what kind of services do you offer? Oh, every Sunday morning at 9:30, we can't wait to meet you. Now, when I finish a Bible study, I'm more than willing to help somebody. I'm more than willing. Now, what was it that you needed? Okay, we'll be glad to help you. All right? So I've immediately separated out the charlatans and the seekers. I know the difference. So I also know that if I advertise the presence of a church long enough, that there are going to be people who just randomly walk in because they're looking for a church and they're familiar with your church, like Ellen and Perry. Hey, Alan, who's that in the corner? He said, Rob, I don't know. I said, yes, it's a visitor. So I have to ask because I'm not there enough. So I slipped in behind him. I sat down. She's there. We had the closing prayer. She stood up. She turned around. I said, ma'am, are you visiting? She says, I am. I said, well, my name's Rob Whitaker. And I said, I'm one of the members here. I'm glad you're here. Are you from the community? She says, I am. I said, ma'am, did you like the service today? I really did. I said, what did you like about it? She said, I like your preacher. And I said, well, what about the preacher? He loves the Bible. And I love the Bible too. Oh, no, we're batting 1,000. This is wonderful. I said, yes, ma'am. I said, Alan loves the Bible. And I said, ma'am, are you alone? She says, well, not really. And she says, my husband got sick. That's why I came in a little late. I said, well, you know, my wife, she's not with me this morning. She was feeling a little under the weather. And I would love to meet your husband. She says, well, you know what? I want to bring him back tonight. If he's feeling good. By the way, do you have a second service? I said, sure, we do. Glad we weren't closed. And I said, yes, ma'am. I said, you just come on back. I gave her the time. She said, I'll be back. Sure enough, my wife was feeling a little better. Perry now walks in and sits down with his wife, Ellen. We sit right behind him. After services, we engage. We just engage in conversation, you know, and we're talking 5-10 minutes. I said, hey, Perry and Ellen, we got a little custom. And they said, well, what is it? I said, we like to take visitors out to eat. I said, Perry, what's your favorite restaurant in Jacksonville? He said, Athena's. I said, wow, Athena's. Oh, no. It's a pricey place. And I said, I'll tell you what, we'll take you. Our treat. You take us to Athena's? I said, yeah. He said, I'm not missing that. And I said, okay. I said, what day you want to go? He said, can we do it on Tuesday? I said, that'd be great. I'll make reservations. So on Tuesday, we show up at the restaurant. We sit down. I could care less about the lasagna. I have one mission. I sit around that table, and I'm going to find the sweet spot. So I looked at Perry. I said, Perry, what do you like? He said, well, I like sports. I said, well, you like, NFL football? He said, no, disrespectful. I don't watch that anymore. I said, me neither. I said, Perry, what do you like? He said, man, he said, I like college, Rob. I said, I do too. I said, tell me what your team is. He said, go Alabama. Go Alabama. If I've got to like Alabama football to get a Bible study so big, I don't care, brethren. I have one mission. And I said, man, Nick Saban's a good coach, you know. I said, man, he's won a lot of games. Yeah, we got a statue for him, Rob. You know, I said, I know you do. And so we're just talking Nick Saban and Alabama football. And here's what I looked at him. I said, remember, I just want one thing. I'm going to get it. I said, Perry, I said, you've had a terrible year this year. He says, I know, Rob, we're not in the championship game. You know, that's a bad year for Alabama. And I said, Perry, but you know tomorrow is the national championship game? And I said, we're having a football party at our house. What was that? That was my wife kicking me. She did not know about this party. And so she kicked me under the table. And I said, Perry, you're invited. He looks at his wife. He said, honey, can we go to the Whitakers to watch the football game? She says, oh, why not? So we're going home. My wife looks at me, what party and who's cooking for this party? And I said, well, honey, I'll help you, you know. And so sure enough, they come over to the house. I'm trying to set the stage. I do this over and over again. They're in my house where I've never met them before. We're just watching a football. It's a blowout. Mute. Hey, Perry, can I ask you a question? Why'd you come to the Jacksonville Church of Christ? Like, why? He said, well, 21 years ago, you guys started mailing us house to house, heart to heart, Rob. He said, and for 21 years, I've been reading it. He said, Rob, it's obvious you guys love the Bible. He said, my church doesn't love the Bible anymore. He told me where he came from. They'd made some rule changes on marriage. And he said, I want to go to a church that respects the Bible. I said, well, I'm glad you came. I said, Perry, do you know a lot about the Jacksonville Church of Christ? He said, I really don't. I said, would you like to know more about us? He said, yeah, I kind of would. I said, I just so happen to have these little booklets. And guess what happens when you do that? We had 4 baptisms because of that one event. We baptized him. We baptized his wife. We baptized his son. We baptized his wife. And by the way, they're at the Jacksonville Church of Christ today. If you want to know, do they stay faithful? You better believe it. Let's go to the back page. What are we doing? We're advertising our event. So backpack drive? Oh, you better believe Carnes will advertise their backpack drive. They know it works. You better believe that's going out in the community. You come to our building. And it was so exciting to watch their members as their faces and eyes blew up as people parked in their parking lot. Those members went out and greeted them, literally walked them through their church building, showed them the auditorium, showed them you guys have a beautiful campus. And it can be intimidating to someone who does not know. I remember the first time I pulled in, I didn't know where to go. So you got people out there and you're showing them around the church, or you're getting them to the classrooms. They're advertising that. That is worth advertising because people will come for that. So you got to figure out what will bring people. What is it that you can put on that back page that says to your community, come here? And how can we make that an evangelistic event? Special offers, 10 Commandments, DVDs, tracts, books. We're always advertising something. What happens when you advertise? I'll tell you exactly what happens. Hello? Yes. This is Deb Rice. Oh, you want the material? Yes, we have a marriage packet. Yes. Be glad to say. What's your name? Brenda Glaze. So we write Brenda Glaze. We write it down. So Deborah calls me. She says, hey, Rob. She says, we've got a contact from a house to house, Brenda Glaze. I said, great. She says, would you like me to mail it? I said, no. Rob, we always mail it. I said, well, we're gonna change that policy if it's okay. I said, I will hand deliver it. So we drive down the road. Nicole and I knock on the door. She comes to the door, and I make sure my wife is with me. Gentlemen, listen carefully. You never knock a door alone. Not today. You always bring a woman or child. Do not go to the door alone. There are 2 reasons for that. One is ethical. The second one is effectiveness. You want them, if they see your ugly face, they're not opening the door, Scott, I'm sorry. They're just not. But if they see Melissa, or if they see one of your sons with you, oh, that's so sweet, they're going to open the door. And so I always stand back, and they open the door. She looks at my wife. I said, yeah. And I kind of pop in. Ma'am, my name is Rob. My wife, Nicole. We're from house to house. We have some marriage material. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, I asked for that. Yes, ma'am. I said, here's a book. Here's a DVD, a track. And, oh, that's so nice. I said, ma'am, did you just get married? Oh, I did, about a month ago. And I want to start my marriage out right. I said, well, that's great. I said, well, who's the lucky man? Well, his name's Daniel. I said, oh, wonderful. Where are you guys from? Oxford. I said, what do you do for a living? She said, well, I do some sitting with older people. What's your husband do? Well, he works in lawn care. I said, well, that's good. And I said, do you know anything about Jacksonville? She says, not a lot. And I'm just talking to her, right, about different things. And finally she stops me. And she says, sir, wait. Sir, can I ask you one question? I said, yes. She says, do you know anything about the Bible? Brethren, you could have blown me over. I said, yes, ma'am, I know just a little bit. She said, good, because my husband knows nothing about the Bible. She turns around. Her husband's asleep on the couch. Daniel, get up. I mean, she's yelling at Daniel, get up. We've got guests. He won't wake up. She goes over and shakes the man. I don't know what he does all day, but he won't get up. And finally he gets up. He's 6'3" or 4". He hovers over me. And so little Brenda, big Daniel. And I'm sitting there. She literally looked at her husband, and these are her exact words. She points at him, Daniel, we're going to teach you the Bible. I said, when do you want to start? She said, tomorrow. I said, we'll bring the chocolate chip cookies. Always eat. And so, sure enough, guess what happened? Y'all ready? 7 baptisms. You know, it doesn't work. I'm told everywhere I go, this won't work here, Rob. Oh, just 50 baptisms in Baltimore. 27 baptisms in Honolulu. But it won't work here. Brethren, if it doesn't work in Germantown, you're the only place it doesn't work. Brethren, when it's not working, I can guarantee I can figure out why. There are people in your communities that need the gospel of Jesus Christ, and they're honest. They're just waiting for somebody to reach out. There's Daniel, big Daniel. There's Brenda. And then we start going to Winford, and we just start going down the list. Oh, and there's Miss Geneva, our family. So we got to make a target list. We got to create a target list at our local church. I'm going to help you do that. But so our members literally need a target list in their hand. We're going to put it in your Bible. We're going to talk about it every service. Who's on your we're going to pray about these folks. I'm not talking about some general prayer. I'm talking we're going to name them. We're going to name these folks personally. We're going to pray for them every single day. We're going to create our you'll never hit a target you don't aim at. We're going to teach you how to knock doors and what to say and what not to say. Strategies that are successful. Things that you can do that I'll guarantee 30% success rate. I've done it in 4 states. I've done it in wealthy areas. I've done it in rural areas. I've done it in suburban areas. I'm not going to tell you the last congregation I did this. No, the second to the last. When I got there, one of the elders came up to me and says, now, Rob, we're a pretty wealthy area, affluent. It won't work here. I said, brother, would you just let me try? He said, yeah, but I'm telling you, it won't work. We did it for 2 days. After 2 days, that elder came back to me and said, can you stop? We have more contacts than we know what to do with. You just need to be trained. Anybody here know about our new movers ministry at House to House, where we get the names and addresses of people who move into your communities? By the way, if we just looked at Germantown here, anybody here have a guess of how many families are moving here every month? I know exactly how many. I even know their name and address. Anybody here own a business? Anybody owned a business before? Okay. Hey, brother, Gage, let me just ask questions. If I came to you and I said, hey, listen, I'll give you the name and address of every person who moves within 20 miles of your business, would that be worth something? What would you do with that information? Okay. Do you know who takes advantage of this? Let me give you some names. When you move, and I know these students, they should know this, right? You should get this answer right. Listen carefully. When you moved, who was it, what business was it that put the first piece of literature in your mailbox? Who was it? Lowe's. Lowe's, they know. They always, and guess what they offered you? 10% off. And the next day, it was Home Depot, 15% off. They know when you move. Why can't we do that? Like, why can't we be the first church that reaches out? Right now, my wife is doing something with your ladies. My wife is teaching your ladies how to go shopping. Brethren, you don't want to do this. They do. Now, she's not teaching them just how to do any type of shopping. She's teaching them how to go shopping in the name of the Lord. And they're going to do God-authorized shopping. They are so excited right now. Just wait till they come talk to the elders. It's God-authorized. And what they're going to do is they're going to put together new mover baskets. And these baskets are going to be used as gift baskets to people who move into the community. And we're going to go to the door and we're going to say, hi, my name is Scott. This is my wife, Melissa. We're your neighbors. We've got a gift we'd like to give you. And you know what kind of reception you're going to get when you give them a gift and you're their neighbor? Pretty good. Listen to this quote. This is from Polishing the Pulpit. People are most likely to change churches when they move. A couple of generations ago, if a family or a couple or an individual moved from one city to another city, they usually stayed with that same denomination. Those days are over. It doesn't matter to me what denomination they were in the last town. Your average person today is willing to look at any church in their neighborhood. That is a powerful opportunity for evangelism. It doesn't matter to me what church they were a part of in the last town. I want them to visit the church of Christ, because it gives us the best opportunity to sit down and study the Word of God. Brethren, they don't care where they go to church. This isn't the 1970s, where a Methodist is always a Methodist. They don't care. There are a lot of people out there right now that really don't care where they go to church, and they just want to go somewhere. And they have no idea what the Church of Christ is. If you are the first person who knocks on their door with a gift, and we send them a postcard, and we send in your behalf another issue of House to House, Heart to Heart, you have reached out to them 3 times, and we're going to go further than that. Let's say you knocked on their door. Let's say, I tell you, youth groups do really well, brother the youth group. Send them out. Let them go meet the new people. And here's what's going to happen. Someone's going to say to you, man, I can't believe you guys came and greeted us. Man, I want to come visit your church. Check. You do. Bring it back to the church. Now what are we going to do? Oh, compassion cards. We're going to add them to our prospect list. Now they're going to get 70 cards over the next 3 weeks. And you're going to send a card, 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 and you're going to send a card. Everybody's going to send cards. And we're going to take these compassion cards, and we're going to overwhelm them with love. Jude verse 22, on some have compassion, making a difference. And we're going to show them that we love them, we care about them. Brethren, read Reaching the Lost tomorrow morning and look at how many baptisms resulted from those card senders. His name, if I can get this right, Jerseyville Church of Christ in Illinois. The preacher is Jake Medford. He went to no school of preaching. He worked for the Catholic Church. He studied himself into the truth. He's a young man, married guy. He's an engineer, I believe. He's studied from World Video Bible School. He contacts us several years ago and says, Rob, there's no preacher in this little church. They've asked me to preach. He said, I'd like to train them how to evangelize. Can you help me? We'd set up a remote enrollment. We trained that church. It is almost every month they have a baptism because of cards. In Illinois, brethren, you are in the Bible Belt. You have no excuse. If Jake Medford, who did not go to a school of preaching, who does not have the background you've got, if he and this little group of people can be baptizing people almost one a month, read about it. It'll be on Wednesday. Just read what he says. It's just every time I pick it up, he's got another one. Hey, Rob, we got another one. Hey, Rob, they came with all those cards. That lady said she got 36 cards from us. Brethren, we are not here preaching theory. I know it works. When you trust the process. Some people don't trust the process. What would happen? I'm scared. What would happen if you bought a Chick-fil-A franchise and you decided you're not going to trust the process and You're going to do your own thing. How long would you keep that franchise? Would it work? What I'm trying to suggest is when you figure out what works, we need to do it. This works. We know it works. It doesn't matter where. Joey Treat from Guam took this back to Guam, and in 3 months, he baptizes 12 people. You know what works in Guam? That's Bettina. Now, I got to tell you guys this. This is great. So, do you see all the cards she's got? So Jacksonville says, Rob, she's ready. I can't do their job for them. When I'm in town, if Jacksonville tells me who they've sent the cards to, I'll go. So I walk into the apartment, cards everywhere, all over. And I said, Bettina, I'm Rob Whitaker, my wife Nicole, we're Jack. Oh, yeah, come on in. Sit down, cards everywhere. I never ask questions I don't know the answers to. Bettina, where'd you get the cards from? Oh, that church. Rob, they send me like 5 cards a day. Oh, I just sit here and read them all day long. I said, hey, Bettina, do you know a lot about the Jacksonville Church of Christ? No, not at all. Would you like to know more about it? Sure. I said, I just so happen to have, help me, these little booklets. Let me tell you about this, Brother Mosier. I know you got some stories to share. Let me share one with you, because this right here, I don't know if I'll ever have this happen again. I'm in Mark 16:16. We're in book 3. And I looked at this lady, and I said, Bettina, would you read Mark 16:16 for me? Oh, I know that verse. He that believes is saved and baptized. I looked at her Bible. And I looked up and I said, Bettina, I said, can you read that again? Yeah, my pastor's told me all about it. I bet he has. He that believes is saved and baptized, Rob. I said, now, I took her Bible. I actually picked it up and I went, King James. Okay, so I said, Bettina, Rob, is there a problem? I said, well, I'm not sure yet. I said, what I want you to do is read it one word at a time. Okay, let me get my spectacles. He that believes and is baptized shall. He that believes and is. That is not what my pastor told me that verse said. I bet not. Oh, guess what happened? We baptized her. Why can't we do this? You know why? Because we're trying to fight a war by ourselves. What happens when the whole church works together? What happens when we mobilize our members? What happens when we get everybody a job and we train them? Brethren, this is what happens. This is not anecdotal. I showed it to you last night. Church after church after church where this is happening. If it doesn't happen at Forest Hill, I bet you I can pinpoint why. Every time a church calls me and says it doesn't work, it takes me 3 questions to figure out why. I said, you have a prospect list. What? A prospect list. You have one. Well, not yet. Have you trained your members? Still working on it. Okay. Have you got your card? Are you sending out cards? Well, some people think people get offended if you send cards. They're suffering from analytical paralysis. We already know what works. You don't need to sit there and try to analyze it. We need to do it. Gentlemen, I end with this. It is time for us to make it operational and get out of the pews. To God be the glory. Thank you for your time.
There are already Bible studies that have been arranged from a recent door knocking. But this needs to be said. I was trying to have dinner this evening and this phone rang from a member whose name I will not give, but he's unable to be with us because of recent hospitalization. He's at home now. He's been paying attention to this series of sermons online, and today when one of his caregivers was telling him about a religious experience, he said, instead of scoffing at her, I said, well, if you've had a religious experience, you need somebody to come and talk with you about that, don't you? She said, yes, I do. He got her name. He got her number. And he said, Scott, you need to give her a call. She's ready. It's already having an impact. When we pray for Bible studies, doors of opportunity will open so wide you can drive a truck through them. And it's already happening. Brethren, thank you for your support for this effort. Brother Rob will be meeting with the elders and certain brethren that the elders have asked to be involved in that conversation. But thank you so much for your support for this effort. For those who have your wives here, please tell them thank you for your support for this effort. And we look forward to the Lord using us as tools in His hand in the days to come. Thank you very much. Would you bow with me before we dismiss? Our Almighty God, Thou art holy and wise. To Thee be the glory. We thank Thee for giving us Thy plan. And Father, we thank Thee for being willing to save our souls and to put us into Thy church so that we can indeed work together to bring more souls to Thy Son. We're thankful for Rob. We're thankful for the elders here that have had the wisdom to organize this event. And Father, we pray for wisdom as we move forward. Help us not to lose sight of the goal. And we only have one. Help us to focus our hearts and minds and ourselves on where Thy Son was focused when He came here. Help us to encourage one another, to love one another, and to be that light on a hill that Thou hast saved us to be. We love Thee. We pray for Thy will to be done in all things. And we bring this prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you.